All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? And in today's video, we are going to do the most exciting discussion. We are going to talk about Sea Serpent versus Markyn. No, I'm kidding, guys. I know it's not exciting. I wanted to get this video out there because A, it's informational, and B, I'm being asked about this a lot. And instead of typing it out or saying it a lot, I can show you guys with the ESO build editor. I can show you guys why I'm running what I'm running, and you guys can at least see where I'm coming from, and maybe it'll apply to some of your builds and maybe it won't. Maybe you'll look at it and go, you know, that makes sense, but for my specific build, that doesn't work for me. But at least then we'll get some of the misconceptions of Sea Serpent out of the way, because there are quite a few. There are quite a few, and I wanted to show those and kind of explain what it is, what it does, why it's so powerful in my opinion. But yeah, that's what this video is going to be. Let's dive into it. Now, first of all, we're gonna, as you guys can see here, I have two browser tabs open. They're both ESO build editor. It's the same character. And so what you can do is you can go on here, and if you guys haven't checked out the site, it's awesome. I've mentioned this so many times over the years. This site has saved me millions of gold. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just a good site. But what you can do is you can input your CP, your buffs, your skills, your gear, everything, input all this stuff, and then you can hit save build and you can create a copy, which is what I did. And so we're gonna get all the static same stuff out of the way, and so I could show it to you guys so that you guys know that we're operating from the same character sheet. We're just making a few minor adjustments so that you guys can see what's going on here. So on the first tab, we have an Imperial Necromancer, Serpent Mundus, level 50, maxed out, 1554 CP, stage 3 vampire. In Cyrodiil, all these are tabbed, 64 points in the stamina. So you see all that there. If we go over to the second tab, exact same thing. Imperial Necromancer, Serpent, level 50, 1554 CP, stage 3 vampire. All these clicked 64 into stamina. These are all the same. As far going back to the first tab, this is a very common build that you see on a lot of different setups. We got back bar Rallying Cry, great set. Front bar Essence Thief, another great set. Infused jewelry, all infused with weapon damage, with Markyn Ring of Majesty for our Mythic. And then we have Trainee, and then two-piece Balorg. So very, very similar setup. You see we have, well, not all prismatics. I just got 30k points in health. So not all prismatics. I run around 30,000 health on a necromancer. You're very tanky as a necromancer. You don't really need much more. We're not wardens. We're not doing warden things trying to buff our health by 10%. 30k is enough, I've found. So this is the build that I'm running over here. This build is the exact same. Rallying Cry, Essence Thief, Balorg, the exact same thing, same traits and everything. The difference is we're running Sea Serpent, and we're making adjustments with Sea Serpent, and we're going to compare a Sea Serpent build with the exact same sets versus one with Markyn with the exact same sets. Now you see I have Rallying Cry and Essence Thief both buffed, Rallying Cry and Essence Thief. If we go back over here and we look at our skills, we have Curative Curse, Undead Confederate, Continuous Attack. If we go over here, it's exact same three. Go back to the first tab. As far as our buffs go, Major Brutality, Major Resolve. You see we don't have any other forms of damage coming in here. I'm not sneaking in minor Berserk or anything like that. No extra sneaky check boxes. You guys can feel free to go back and tell me if I'm wrong, if one of these are checked. Weapon damage enchant on the back bar, doesn't matter. It's only 174, but we have the exact same thing over here. The difference is Major Berserk and Major Courage is procced because this is Sea Serpent procced. This is what Sea Serpent gives you. So if we go and look, after taking damage while at full health in combat, you gain Serpent's Rebuke, snaring yourself by 40%, and you gain Major Berserk and Major Courage. So that's why these buffs are equipped in this and not in the other one. As far as CP, as you guys can see, it's the exact same CP in both 1554. The big ones to know is you see I have Biting Aura and Master at Arms. Those are the two damage dealing CP I have in. Doesn't really matter. The other two are reduced damage taken. So you can see Unassailable, Duelist Rebuff. If we go over here, Duelist Rebuff, Unassailable, Biting Aura, Master at Arms. You don't get damage from any of the other trees. We don't really have to look at them, but hopefully I'm showing you that they're all the same because they're not going to make a difference anyways. And so with that being said, we now see we have static character sheets. Hopefully I proved to you that I'm not lying. And we're just trying to compare Markyn versus Sea Serpent. And so we're using a popular build that's used on a lot of different classes, and we're going to do comparisons. And so when you look at this, you see our D-Swing has a 13,308 tooltip. Quite nice. I mean, you're running all damage. It better be nice. It better be nice. Over here, we are running Sea Serpent procced, like I showed you guys, everything buffed up. The only difference is Sea Serpent gives you a snare of 40%. And so when you take damage, in order for this to proc, you get a 40% snare. Now, oftentimes for a lot of people, that's untenable. That is too much of a snare. They don't want to run it. They don't want to be slowed because in PvP, if you're a turtle, you die. And it makes sense. Like, a lot of people play a fast play style. I traditionally haven't. If you look at my builds over the years, I don't think I've ever, until the last couple patches, I've never really used Swift on my jewelry. I always like to stack infused weapon damage or bloodthirsty or harmony. Like, I try to stack damage. I don't need the movement speed. I do value it. I do try to run like bow with movement speed via dodge roll or race against time or misform. So I always try to have major expedition on my bar, but I don't value putting speed on my jewelry. And so that's the difference. I do value speed, but I don't value like stacking a ton of speed. I'm not Speedy Gonzalez. I'm not Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm none of these things. I'm just a normal build that has access to major expedition because I like varying forms of survival. I like being able to dodge, block, and having some speed, but I don't need to be crazy fast. But a 40% snare is a lot. This is a 40% snare is a lot. And so in order to offset this, you can run Swift. So I got 3 gold jewelry pieces with all Swift, and you see it's 7% movement speed increased, and these will offset each other. So 3 Swift is 21% more movement speed. Your CP, you can have Celerity, which is 31%. And also, not for nothing, but you do have a medium armor passive here. Increases movement speed by 2% while immune to crowd control. So while you have crowd control immunity, through move pots or CC breaking or whatever, with 5 medium like I'm running here, you have 10% more move speed. So in those points, I am offsetting the overall slow to where I'm moving. And these things are additive, and like, if I have 40% more move speed and I take a 40% snare, my movement speed is normal. We're back at 0. And so it's easy to figure out in that way. If I don't have CC immunity with the medium armor passives, I take a 9% speed loss. Now, personally for me, 9% is not a ton. It doesn't matter to me that much. But if it matters to you because you do like to run Swift, you're not going to like this setup. I totally get that. I'm just explaining and showing you this. So that's where we're at, is for a 9% loss, what do we get? Well, we get a 14,448 tooltip on our D-Swing compared to 13,308. So we do more damage. If we look at a percentage change calculator, 14,448 versus 13,308, we get just under an 8% damage increase. Now, if you guys know how Essence Thief works, Essence Thief stacks, you don't get the full 10%. 10% is actually not 10%, it's more like 7. And so when you think about this set, when you think about running this, even with Swift, and this is why I'm running it, we get almost 8% more damage with this specific build. And it's so much damage that I can run a defensive set. So hypothetically, let's say I want more mitigation, and any sort of the good armor mitigation sets like Way of Fire, Ethereal Ascension, Pariah, those sets will mitigate more damage than Rallying Cry. Because not only are they mitigating non-crits, they're also mitigating your crits more. I've tested Ethereal Ascension versus Rallying Cry as far as critical damage goes. Ethereal Ascension mitigates more in general. Armor is just a more superior mitigation thing, especially when you have a lot of it. And as a necromancer running resistant flesh, where I also get armor here, I can stack armor and I can, have a lot of mitigation. And so more than I would get with Rallying Cry. And so if you're in a patch like last patch with Oaken Soul, with major force, and people are stacking major and minor force on gankers, and there's all sorts of just gank damage from a bunch of different specs, you can't be expected to block something that you can't see, because that's not how gankers work. Gankers are they're opportunists, and so they will try to gank you at the most inopportune time, like when you're fighting a bunch of people. I've found that Swift doesn't matter. Eventually, if I'm fighting 1v5, I'm going to have to stop at some point to fight the 5 people. That's when they're going to attack me. And so the only way that you can really successfully mitigate gank damage is by running resistances. Does that make sense? And so in that type of patch where damage is extremely high and people can 100 to 0 you very quickly, what I have found is if I run Sea Serpent, I can run a defensive set, and I have just as much damage as a glass cannon build running like Essence Thief and Rallying Cry, because that 8% is actually more damage than what the Essence Thief 5-piece is. This 10% doesn't add up to 10% when it fully comes into effect. It's actually more like, more like, 6 or 7. I want to say it's 7 point something, but it's very close. And so the point is if you're in that type of patch, you can run a defensive set. So one of the things I always get when I'm running this is, as you guys know, I've been running Ethereal Ascension, or I've been recently running Maras, and people are like, well, you can't kill anybody with those. Well, I can, because for a 9% movement speed loss when it's procced, I have just as much damage as a glass cannon, Markyn of Majesty, Mythic, fully infused weapon damage build. And so even though I'm running a defensive set, it's giving me so much damage. It's very, very similar. And so that's part of the reason why I'm running it. For me, the 9% snare doesn't mean a whole lot. For you guys, if you're running Harmony, you can't run Swift. Makes sense, right? Like, you can't run Swift if you're running Harmony. If you like Bloodthirsty, and you're a bloodthirsty build, and you like having that higher damage at lower health, you can't run Swift. So it makes sense. Like there's some builds or some play styles where you're not going to be able to utilize this in the same way. But I found it's a good way to offset, and it still gives me, similar to glass cannon level damage effectiveness without having to run glass cannon. That's why it's strong for a 9% speed loss. Now, on top of all this, the other thing that I've found when I run Sea Serpent, and you guys have seen it if you've been watching, I'll post links of gameplay and stuff. But Sea Serpent gives me a 40% damage reduction when I'm at full health. So if gankers come in and hit me and I'm at full health, their first hit is reduced by 40%, which makes me very tanky. Anytime I get topped off that initial hit, sometimes it's a light attack, sometimes it's a heavy attack, sometimes it's an in cap. Who knows what it's going to be? It's a lot of mitigation on the first hit. It's not for nothing. It is something. It's something to keep in mind. But the other thing too is how this procs is you have to take damage while you're at full health. It's not when you take damage every 10 seconds. It's when you take damage while you're at full health. So there will be times where I'm fighting 3, 4, 5 people and everything's fine, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm trying to 1vx, kiting around corners, whatever. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 Nightblades come out of stealth. I can't get on my front bar anymore because I'm taking so much damage. I'm on my back bar just trying to stay alive because all of a sudden I'm taking 3 more people attacking me, 2 more people, doesn't matter. There's X amount of number of people attacking me to where I can no longer go offensive, because if I do, I'm going to die. I can't keep my health topped off. Well, you know what happens when I can't keep my health topped off because I'm trying to run for my life because I'm getting run down? Sea Serpent does not proc. And so when Sea Serpent doesn't proc, I no longer have a snare. I now have 21% movement speed plus the 10% from celerity. So I now have 31% move speed when I need it the most. And so when I need to kite, when I need to get away from people, I can then pop a spell wall. I can then use Major Expedition. And I am now fast as hell to try and get to a spot. The minute I can get to a rock, the minute I can get to some line of sight and I get topped off at full health, Sea Serpent can proc. So when I choose my battle, when I can get to my spot and I can finally get my health topped off, Sea Serpent will finally proc, and then I go back to having good damage with, the 9% snare. And so when you're in open field, this, it works out pretty well. I found it works out pretty well. I've ran it on a Nightblade, I've ran it on my Necro, and yeah, I don't notice, like there have been times where the 9% snare has gotten me killed. Absolutely. But there's been plenty of times also where having 8% more damage and having that extra mitigation has allowed me to kill more people. And so that's the preference that it's going to come down to. Do you want a slight 9% slow some of the time? Like, and keep in mind the 9% slow doesn't come into effect if I CC break and I have crowd control immunity, or if I, pop an immovable potion or whatever, then it offsets it and I'm back up to 1%, because it's with 5 medium, it's 10%, 9% slower, +1. So I'm +1 in those situations. And then when this immunity ends, I go back down to the 9% speed, 9% snare. So that's how I see it. And oftentimes when I'm 1vxing, I don't need to chase people. They're fighting me. I'm typically fighting on my own turf. I'm typically choosing my own fights. So if I'm severely outnumbered, I have speed to choose my own fight. When I choose my own fight, I then have more damage than I would with markyn or DDF or something like that for most builds. And so that's why I'm running it, if that makes sense. And I have lots of gameplay. I can provide links to all the different stamcro, and you just have to mute the video because I'm doing commentary and other things, and you guys can check it out for yourself. Obviously, I also stream on Twitch. If you guys want to come watch me, run Sea Serpent there, you can feel free to do that. Oh, one last thing. For Magicka builds, if you're using Mistform, well, you can't heal when you're in Mistform. So Mistform is Major Expedition. If you can't heal and you can't get your health topped off because you can't heal in Mistform, you're going to have the Major Expedition plus the swift movement speed. And so Mistform builds also get the same bonuses in this situation that I would using like Race Against Time. And so that's why it's so beneficial, in my opinion, is you have more damage. Yeah, it's proven. I have 8% more damage for a 9% snare some of the time. Plus I have 40% mitigation on an initial attack. Plus when I'm really getting sweat down, I have the ability to be super fast, to be Speedy Gonzalez, to be Sonic the Hedgehog, or that dedicated scroll runner that everybody seems to have. So it's a nice little bonus that I can have that I wouldn't have on another build, on like a markyn or a DDF build. Having that ability to be that fast is quite nice. And sometimes when people do run away, if they are running away from me, they're not proccing Sea Serpent. They're not proccing Sea Serpent on me because they're not damaging me. And so I can then catch up to them if I have to. So the snare isn't as bad as it's made out to be. It's 9% some of the time, but you choose your fights if you know how to choose your fights well, it works out pretty decently. And so yeah, hopefully this clears the air on Sea Serpent. It's not best in slot for all builds. Markyn has its place. Death Dealer's Feet has its place. Torque has its place. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be. There shouldn't be a mythic that is best in slot for everyone. And I don't think there is. Not this patch. Last patch there was. But that one got adjusted. And so now they all more or less have their place. It's my opinion that this one is the strongest. I think it is the strongest, especially for how I like to play, but there's going to be lots of builds that will not run this. Like if you like Swift, if you like running 14% more movement speed, you're not going to get that running Sea Serpent. And so you're not going to like it. And so there's nothing that I can say where you're just like, nope, I don't like moving normally. I like to have a little bit of speed. That's my playstyle. That's what I like. That's what you like. That's fine. But at least now you can see with the numbers how powerful Sea Serpent is, what it's providing, why it's so good, and why I can run a defensive set and still have quote unquote glass cannon level damage compared to a setup like markyn with Rallying Cry and Essence Thief. Because this is very glass cannon. Markyn, Rallying Cry, Essence Thief, this is a very bursty, high damage build. And I get similar damage running a defensive set with Sea Serpent. So, yeah. It's not, I don't know. I don't want to bounce back and forth and be like, oh yeah, this is definitively, I know I've said this like a few times now. It's preferences. And hopefully this clears the air for like if you weren't going to run Sea Serpent and you weren't sure about it because you don't like the 40% snare, this will give you an idea of what it provides, and if you're willing to, take a 9% snare. if you're willing to make these adjustments. Do you want to run medium? If you're not running medium, you're never getting that speed, so you're always going to be 9% slower. If you don't want to run celerity because you value other CP, you're going to be 19% slower. Do you want to be? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Another thing as well is a set like Griffin's Ferocity is also very popular because it's minor force and it's minor expedition. And so that's another 15% movement speed with Griffin. I've seen a lot of people use Sea Serpent and Griffin to great effect because it's bursty. People are stacking crit damage and crit modifiers. And that one also provides speed. And so that's another way to offset this. So instead of maybe running Essence Thief front bar, maybe you run like Rallying Cry. And if your crit chance is low, like it is with mine on this specific build, you're not gonna run Griffin. Like I just accept the fact that I'm gonna be a little bit slower. But there are adjustments, there are other choices you can make, and maybe it's better than your current build. That's all I'm trying to say. It's worth looking at least. And yeah, if you don't run it, you don't run it. But at least now you know why I'm running it, which was the point of the video. So hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comments section below. If you liked this type of video, I try to do one of these every once in a while, or every couple weeks. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, maybe, maybe join. We got to catch up to Sawman. He just shot past me, and it's not fair. I'm gonna have to do a video and talk about why he's a bad person. So yeah, hate to do it to you, Sawman, but that's just the way it is. In all seriousness, this is now the end of the video. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.